the most important thing to understand about this entire video, when we wake up to any sort of insight on the spiritual path, the next insight will mean that you have to reject the old insight. So in other words, we have to get used to this. Something that we thought was true will no longer be true once we understand a deeper truth. So the spiritual process, the development of it, is to the extent that we are willing to both not hold on to knowledge, therefore we are willing to give up knowledge, and therefore willingness to be wrong or incorrect, and a willingness to accept new truths, and to accept those new truths on the premise that we are ready to give them up if necessary. And what this does is it opens up the mind to like its maximum capacity. One of the reasons why people seek for so long is purely because they're not willing to let go of things that they thought were true. So we could have a full-blown awakening experience, and later somehow that insight that we thought was like the highest level insight could be something that needs to be evolved from. There could be a deeper understanding to it. One of those examples for me was that I thought I was the observer of my experience. So I was in a Vipassana retreat about 7 or 8 years ago. My gosh, it's even longer. Time flies. That's so weird. Forgot it's 2026. So I was in a Vipassana retreat, and I realized I had this experience that everything was happening and I was like not in the experience, like as though I was watching it on TV, but there was no body watching it on the TV, like no actual physical body, right? So we're watching this show right now. When you're watching Netflix, you know, you're in a body watching a screen, but this was, I'm watching a screen, but I'm not in a body. And the screen was my life. And whereas this is kind of like, this isn't too far off from my experience now, although at the time, I believe that there was still this duality between myself and the world. I was the observer and the world was the world. Like there was no, it still had this solid reality. It's just I wasn't a part of it, you see? So there was a dissociation between my identification with the body, the mind, and the world, which are technically all three the same thing, but for argument's sake, for explanation's sake. And therefore I kind of it was a necessary step. It's a necessary stage of this path, because what that does, that experience, it shows us that we exist. We can be, when I say exist, I don't mean to stand out from, but we can be without being in the experience that we're experiencing. We usually think I'm in the body and the experience is around me. There is a step where we must go from I'm not in the body and experience is in me. And this at the time will feel like, oh, that was it. That was it. That was the thing that I should have been looking for this whole time. Because obviously at the time, I'm still seeking states, right? I'm still seeking a state of experience. And so what can be, this is an example, and I thought this was the final thing. I need to go back there, find that thing, you know? Because it was similar to various psychedelic experiences that I'd had. So it's natural then for an unguided mind, basically a mind that doesn't have someone grounded enough to be able to help them understand what it is that they're going through, will naturally grasp that experience because it is an experience, right? So my point is, there will be times where we think we've had an experience or whatever it is, or understood something that is like the highest thing. And then we will find out later that it's not the highest thing. And therefore, the premise of this right now is to drop your belief that there is a highest thing that you must attain and get to. This will open you up for understanding the rest of what I'm about to say. So now that your mind might have opened up a little bit, and now I want to share with you that you don't have to have a particular experience in order to be unconditionally happy. In fact, that is what unconditional happiness is. For no particular experience to be taking place and to still be completely happy, fulfilled, and content, irrespective of the experience. Most people think then that what that means is, well, if I was like that, then I shouldn't be angry and I shouldn't be sad or I shouldn't be this. And we start adding conditions. It's like we make an expectation of what that state would be, even though it's not even a state, but the mind can only think in objective terms, right? So it will try to imagine what it would be like. It wouldn't be, technically speaking, it wouldn't be like anything, you see? Because it's the absence of the resistance to anything. So the mind will try to imagine, well, I shouldn't be angry, I shouldn't be this. But actually, what it does mean is that you can be angry, you can be sad. The things that won't take place is the blame, the shame, the guilt, and the hatred, and therefore the suffering. So most people don't realize you can be angry without feeling blame. It's not the anger that makes us suffer, it's blame. Dogs can get angry. You've seen a dog get angry, but a dog's not blaming anything, you know? The dog doesn't blame things, it just gets angry, gets scared, doesn't get angry, doesn't get scared. It's just one or the other, and it's not suffering through that process because it's not blaming anything. And then after that, the dog's fine again. You know, my sister's dog, whenever a guest comes into our home, he barks like crazy. He's angry. What are you doing in my house? And then 2 minutes later, he's like sitting on their lap, right? If he was blaming them, he wouldn't be sitting on their lap after. So, in other words, we need to also then get used to the fact that we can be with any experience that is a natural experience, which is anger, grief, sadness, excitement, nervousness, even fear, and not suffer. That's a possibility. Now, we don't actually have to learn much apart from just knowing that. So now, the most simple thing, this is why letting go is actually so much easier than you think, because it is literally just like we already have this capacity. You don't have to be an enlightened being to have this ability, because we're all capable of it, because we are already free. It's just we, for some reason, don't give ourselves permission to feel what we want to feel. I don't know why. You tell me. Why do you not give yourself permission? Well, in most cases, it's because you believe you're temporary, limited, and finite. But without going into too much philosophy at the moment, I think that it's important to know, because a lot of people who've seen this, I think that to a large degree, you've already tasted your true nature. I don't think there's much to go into on that. But I just want you to see right now that whenever you're sad, imagine you have a child, and the child is angry. And instead of telling the child to not be angry, you just say, "Oh, you're angry." You acknowledge, "Oh." And the child's like, "Am I okay to be angry?" And you say, "Yeah, of course, be angry." And then you're like, "Okay, can I be sad?" "Of course." "Okay, can I be frustrated?" "Yes." "Can I be scared?" "Yes." You're just giving giving the child the freedom to be exactly as it is, right? You don't change the child. You don't say, "Don't be angry, don't be sad, don't be scared, don't be this, don't be that." You just give it the freedom to be exactly as the child wants to be. Now, this isn't inner child work, but I'm using a child as an example because ideally, parents that are emotionally regulated will let their children just be whatever they're being in the moment. They won't try. They're not a British parent, right? Like my mum, like, "Don't be this, don't be that, don't be this, don't don't be anything other than happy." Conventionally happy. Thing is, children are very happy naturally, obviously, but it's our conditioning that prevents us from being able to experience that happiness without conditions. So we kind of learn to add conditions to our happiness. So whereas we're always happy as a child, and then our parents teach us, basically, or if not our parents, the world, they teach us, be happy, but don't be sad, don't be angry, don't be any of this. But the thing is, the child's happiness is all encompassing. It is unconditional as a child. And then we learn conditions. So I can be happy, but only if I'm not sad, I'm not angry, I'm not this. And all of a sudden then, when we're sad, angry, whatever, we resist it. We're like, oh, but I shouldn't be this way. I'm not allowed, I can be happy, but as long as I'm not sad or angry. And then we have this conflict between happiness on the one side and then any other feeling or sensation that people don't want to face on the other, right? So everybody enjoys happiness. So when you're happy as a child, parents love it, right? If you're too happy though, too excited, your parents will tell you to shut up, be quiet, right? So I can't be too happy. I can't express too much happiness or I'll get shut down. But if I'm anything other than that, I also aren't allowed to do that either. So I get this narrow bandwidth of happiness to experience. So basically, your happiness goes from unconditional, I can be as happy as I want, I can be as sad as I want, and I can still be happy because I'm naturally able to express everything and therefore not resist it. But now I'm not allowed to do that. I don't have permission. So now I'm going to be in this narrow bandwidth of happiness. That's very conditional happiness. So do you see how we develop these conditions along the way? Do you see how now it makes sense? Oh, well, of course, I thought happiness was only when I felt a certain way because I was taught I can't be sad, I can't be this, I can't be that, I can't be anything other than this conventional like idea of happiness, which is anything that isn't too happy or too excited or too de-excited. You see? Excited meaning any type of emotional volatility to some degree, any type of emotional experience. So that's how conditional happiness is created. So all you're going to do now is have this understanding. Then the next time you're in a position where you feel sad or angry, and the reason we blame, by the way, when we're angry or sad or in grief or whatever, is because we do not give ourselves, because we're not allowed, we don't give ourselves permission to feel this way, we need to give an excuse, right? We need to give an excuse. Oh, I'm angry, but I'm not allowed to be angry. Anger was an emotion I wasn't allowed to feel. So who's to blame for this? Because then it's not my fault then. So then I can be allowed to be angry. You see, it's like we outsource the permission to something else. Oh, because it wasn't my fault that I'm angry, it's your fault I'm angry. Then I can process my anger. You see? But you see how destructive that is because you don't process the anger. You express the anger outwardly, which doesn't process it. It just puts it somewhere else, right? Which inevitably will come back to you, which is what karma is, right? So when you blame someone or even in grief, like if someone's died, and you feel you feel the grief, you feel the loss, you feel, and most people, if you resist that, you're not allowed to feel that sad because you're going to upset everyone else, right? If you're a child and you're crying, you're going to be like, well, I'm not allowed to cry or be sad because my mum won't be happy, my dad won't be happy. Last time I was like this in a restaurant, I was really told off and I was shut down and I wasn't allowed to feel this way. So now that I'm really sad and I've got a lot of emotion, oh, this is really bad. And what happens then is we use blame again, or shame or guilt or regret. So we make excuses to be sad, to be this sad. And those excuses, we use them as a means, just like with anger, to process. this feeling, to give ourselves a reason to be justified to process it. And what that does is actually perpetuates it, obviously, because you're not processing it. You are bypassing the feeling, sensation, energy, emotion via putting it into the past. Like, I wish I did more for this person, or I can't believe I didn't say this, or I can't believe blah, blah, blah. And we will perpetuate the grief. And this isn't grief, by the way. This is kind of, this is just suffering, really. The grief is actually postponed while we're doing that. So people call it the stages of grief. But the stages of grief aren't really this. They're postponed by this regret, blame, shame, things like that. Anger is a process of anger without blame. We might go through anger and things like this, but the things that prevent the anger being expressed and fully integrated are things like blame, shame, guilt, hatred, regret in grief. So I just want you to map this out in your mind so that you understand that whenever you feel any normal human emotion, which will be anything that you could possibly feel, just notice when you are trying to make an excuse for feeling that way. Try and notice when you are bypassing it by either blaming, shaming, guilting yourself, somebody else, or life. And just realize, oh, I can actually feel this way. I'm going to give myself the freedom to be exactly as I am. I don't need to justify it. I don't need to do anything. In fact, I kind of like being angry. I kind of like being this way. Actually, it's very enjoyable. I'm going to grieve for as long as I like. I will sit and whine and moan for eternity if I have to. I don't mind, because actually, I can feel this way. And there's nothing stopping me. There's nothing getting in the way. No, I'm not going to be a detriment to someone's life because I'm sad or angry, unless obviously that sadness or anger is being expressed outwardly to them and I'm physically abusing or violent to them. So it's safe within me. This is what we have to come to terms with. Everything is safe within me. Everything. Everything. It's not a disservice to your understanding. You don't need to go back to the drawing board and start seeking again. Relieve yourselves of these conditions that if I'm unconditionally happy, I can't feel a certain way. That's a massive condition. So come back to your innate, natural, unconditional happiness. I have a free community where I talk people through this every single week, all for free. If you'd like to join, I would love to see you there. If not, keep watching some videos. Hopefully there'll be some more insight that you enjoy as well. Have a beautiful day, guys. Take care.